Hi everyone, I'm Rockin' Robin from CookingMexicanRecipes.com. In today's episode, I'm going to show you how to make my Chipotle chicken. This is a one skillet recipe. We're going to be using chicken breast and we're going to make a tomato-based sauce. And we're going to top it off with some Monterey Jack cheese and serve it over a bed of rice. So don't go away, I'm going to show you how to do it in just a minute. Okay, so let's get started and go over our ingredients for our Chipotle chicken. Okay, so I have here about 1 3/4 pounds of chicken breast. It's boneless, skinless, and I'm going to be butterflying these because they're pretty thick and I want this to cook up relatively quickly. We'll also need some salt. I have some salt here. Here's some sugar, and this is my taco seasoning, which I'll leave a link below in the description so you can find out how to make that. We have some white wine. I'm using Sauvignon Blanc. Here I've got some minced garlic and some diced yellow onion. And then here I've got a couple containers of this ingredient here. This is a Chipotle chili seasoning, which I grounded up here in the bottle itself. So I have some here to go into the tomato sauce, and then I have some over here to be seasoned. I'll use it to season my chicken. Also need a couple cans of fire roasted tomatoes. I like to use these because they have a much better flavor. We'll need a can of corn, which we'll drain the liquid out of, and some olive oil. And our last ingredient is some Monterey Jack cheese that's been grated up. So the first thing that I want you to do, and what I just did, was I put my chicken on the plate. I had it in the freezer for just 10 minutes. Now the reason I want you to do that is so that the meat will firm up just a little bit, so that it makes butterflying it way easier. I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so you take your chicken and of course start off with a nice sharp knife. And now that it's slightly firmed up from being in the freezer, you can make your butterfly cuts like this. And the chicken just sits still a little bit better when it's a little more chilled. Okay, so that's all we're doing. We're just going to cut it in half just like that, and I'll finish up the rest. So now that all of my chicken breasts are cut in half, I still want to pound them just a little bit. Some are still thicker than others, so I'm going to go ahead and just pound it down a little bit and try and make them all the same as much as possible. Okay, so go ahead and check your breast and make sure that they're all about the same thickness. That's what you're shooting for. And also I want to mention, be really careful about handling the chicken. Make sure that you wash your hands after you touch all this stuff. I mean, I'm touching all this. You want to make sure you really wash and rinse your hands well so you don't get any cross-contamination. So I'm just piling the chicken onto the plate, and then we'll move on. So the first thing we're going to do is sear our chicken. So I've got a stainless steel pan here that I'm heating up first. I'm not going to add the oil until the pan is hot. Okay, I don't want my oil sitting there getting really, very high temperature. Olive oil just doesn't handle high heat very well. So let's get the pan hot first, then we'll add our oil, then we'll add our chicken. All right, our pan is hot. I'm going to pour in a little bit of olive oil. Not too much, just a little bit. Okay, and I'm going to coat the pan, and I'm going to drop 3 pieces of chicken in there. And I'm going to add some of my Chipotle seasoning. We're going to cook this for about 2 minutes, and then I'm going to turn it over. All right, I think we'll turn these over. Now we don't want to cook them all the way necessarily. I'm just getting them seared. I'll add a little more of our chipotle on this side. Add a little bit of salt. And cook those another 2 minutes or so. All right, these have cooked another couple minutes. I'm going to set them on a clean plate and cook the second batch. Now, if you really want to make this dish spicy, you can substitute my Chipotle seasoning here for the Chipotle jalapenos in adobo sauce. Those come in a can and they really bring the spice level up. So if you want that, feel free to substitute. I would add that though a little bit later in the process when you go to add your tomato sauce. So in just a minute this is going to be done and we're going to move on to our next thing. Okay, so now that the chicken is done, like I said, it doesn't have to be done all the way because we're going to cook this a little more. It's nice and seared. Now you can see in my pan here I've got a lot of good stuff in there. Alright, so I'm going to add a little bit more olive oil to this because we're going to be sauteing our onions. And we want to pick up a lot of that good flavor in there. So I'm going to put my onions in here. And we're going to saute these for probably about 10 minutes or so. So while we're waiting for our onions to saute, caramelize a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and pour my roasted tomatoes into my blender. And the reason being, it's a little bit chunky and I want it to be a little bit more uniform, although I don't want it to be pureed completely. So I'm just putting it in the blender. This would be the time when you'd want to add your chipotle peppers if you were using that. So I'm just going to give it a little bit so that it's smoothed it out a little bit, as you can see here. It's a nice consistency. You can see my onions now have really picked up all of the brown bits from the bottom of the pan. And I did turn the temperature down to low when I'm doing this. So now I'm going to go ahead, it's time to add the garlic. I'm going to add that in there and saute that for about 2 minutes. Now I'm ready to add my wine to help deglaze the pan. Pick up a lot of flavor with this. And now I am about ready to add my tomatoes to this and everything else. So here we go. Then we'll add my taco seasoning mix. A little bit more chipotle seasoning. And I've got a little bit of salt here and sugar. Alright, so I'm going to stir all this in and I'm going to let this simmer so all the flavors can kind of meld together before we add our chicken to it. So now that I've got my sauce up to a simmer, now is when you want to give it a little taste, so you can make adjustments at this point. If you want to add more salt, or you want to add more chipotle, or more taco seasoning, now's the time to do it. I'm going to go ahead and add just a little bit more of my chipotle seasoning to that. Make sure you combine everything well, and we're going to go ahead and add back the chicken so that it can continue to cook. So I'm just going to lay all the pieces in here in the sauce, and some of these thicker pieces need a little more cooking. Also, we've got to add our corn. Now if you don't like corn, you don't have to add this, but we really like it mixed in there. Alright, get the rest of these pieces in. And then I'm going to cover this and I'm going to let it simmer for probably 10 minutes, and then I'm going to check the thickest piece of chicken to make sure that it's done. You don't want it to be pink at all, you want it to be completely done. So like I said, I'm going to cover it and simmer it for about 10 minutes and we'll check it then. It's been 10 minutes, so we're going to check our chicken. We're going to find ourselves a nice thick piece here. Cut it. That looks good to me. Looks like it's cooked all the way, no red. So now our next step is to take our Monterey Jack cheese. We're going to sprinkle it over the top. And then we're just going to let it melt. As soon as it melts, then we'll be ready to serve this up. And did I mention that you can serve this over rice or pasta? Because that's what we're going to be doing. I'm going to serve this over a little bit of white rice. It's delicious. Okay, we'll cover this for about 2 minutes and we should be done. I just pulled this off the stove and you got to have a look. It looks so delicious. With that cheese melted over the top, it looks amazing. So I'm going to go ahead and serve a little bit up. I have some white rice here that I'm using. White rice goes really well with this, so I got a little bed of rice here. And I'm going to need something to scoop out my chicken. Right over the top of the rice, and then grab yourself a little extra sauce to put on your rice. It smells amazing. You guys are going to love this. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a little taste. It smells great. Wow. Guys, you're really going to love this. That chipotle flavor, nice and smoky. It's got a little zip to it. The rice, I mean, everything's together. The cheese melted all over it. You are going to love this. I hope you guys will try it. Anyway, thanks for watching. Be sure and subscribe to my channel and leave me a comment. Let me know if you have, a request for a recipe. Leave it down below in the description, and I will try and make it for you. Thanks for watching, and we will catch you in the next video.